Hello everyone, today I'm going to start with the 73rd Amendment Act, that is the institution of Panchayati Raj, and how this Panchayati Raj came into existence, what were the various factors associated with it. Village Panchayat had always been an integral part of the Indian subcontinent, and though they had not been working effectively before 1992, nevertheless they had some significant contribution in rural people's development and in village development. Uh, they had been since the most difficult one was the inability to act as the people's authority and be responsible to the necessities of the people. One can state that it varies from state to state due to the lack of certain financial resources with the village panchayat. The needs and the necessities of the people and the weaker sections could not be met in a very effective manner, and also had been absence of regular elections. Thus it deemed necessary to take care of such issues, and so the 73rd Amendment Act of the Indian Constitution was passed to strengthen the government at the local level. So rural development was the major priority for or rather main objectives of the Panchayati Raj, and it has been established in all states of India except Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram, in union territories except Delhi and certain other areas, and these which include the scheduled areas and the tribal areas in the states. But later on, after 1992, there was an extension of panchayats to the rural and to the scheduled castes, as the PISA Act that came into existence, and the hill area of Manipur, of which district for which a district council exists, and the Darjeeling district of West Bengal, for which Darjeeling Gorkha Council also existed. So the institution of Panchayati Raj was now recognized as an important mechanism for decentralization of power and materializing people's participation in the developmental activities. It has been given the constitutional status rather through the 73rd Amendment Act of 1992, which made the details of the transfer of power to the panchayat as a part of the most basic document of the nation, that is the Constitution of India. And the 73rd Amendment Act, it was very important course in order to, or rather 73rd, the establishment of panchayats as a Panchayati Raj institutions under the Constitution Amendment was a significant step in order to strengthen the village community, in order to bring about developmental activities and also to ensure people's participation in this process. In India, the concept of local self-government has always been there, and it is something which is not new. Throughout the ages until the British rule, the village communities have kept this system alive. In our village, there had been different sections of the community which had helped and dependent on each other, and they were to certain age-old customs, traditions which had maintained the community spirit. These very village bodies were the lines of contact with the lines, were the lines of contact with the high authorities on matters affecting the village community. So each village, before the establishment, also each village had a sabha consisting of the adult residents of the village, and each sabha had a sort of a executive body of around 5 people known as the panchas or the panchayat. So the panchayat was collectively responsible to bring about or for looking after the needs and necessities of the village people, and each village was a compact administrative unit served by public functionaries who were part of the village community. So the panchayat managed the affairs of the village community, and no village affair was considered beyond its control. So despite many political changes which has taken in the towns and cities during the various course, the village community always had the spirit of the panchayats and the functioning of Panchayati Raj institutions. In fact, if we look into in fact, when there had been the Britishers even had their own representatives in every region, and as a result of the British interference, the attitude of people towards panchayats changed. So progressively, the people began losing faith in the institution of panchayat. However, in 1882, the government of India resolution on local self government was announced, and Lord Ripon's government had sent circulars to the government in the province of the subject, of local self-government, as they wanted to find out what the public opinion was. So the issue in the circular became the basis for the Government of India Resolution 1882, and later the Local Bodies Act of 1885 came into existence. So this was the basis of setting up of self-governing institutions with a majority of nominated members down to the village level. Then it seems, however, it was later on found that when the commission was set up, it was, in fact, it seemed that Lord Ripon viewed the problem of local self-government liberally. He thought that the local self-governing body or institutions would act as instruments of political and popular, should act as an instrument of political and popular education. And another major step in this direction was the report of the Royal Commission on Decentralization, and this commission was set up in 1907, and it submitted its report in 1909. It recommended that it would be desirable for effective decentralization to associate people with local tasks and village affairs through village panchayats. So this was the starting point where the Royal Commission had given a thought that how people should be made or should be included in the village affairs, and people's participation would become necessary. But like the Ripon resolution, the recommendations made by the Royal Commission on Decentralization also remain on paper only. So, however, in the same year, that is 1909, the 24th session of the Congress at Lahore adopted a resolution urging the government to take up early steps to have elected local bodies from village panchayat upwards with non-official chairman for the local bodies, and to provide them with necessary financial support. However, with the Montague Chelmsford, as I said, that the Indian National Congress also perceived this power and panchayat as people's institutions. However, the Montague Chelmsford reforms of 1919, under the proposed scheme of diarchy, made local self-government a transferable subject. This means that the local self-government was brought under the control. It was brought under the control of Indian ministers in the province, and the idea was to make the local bodies truly representative bodies by bringing them under the popular control. So this, however, did not make the panchayat institutions truly democratic, as there were various other factors or constraints which had to be overcome. Yet many acts were passed by various states for establishing panchayats, and these included the Bengal Village Self-Government Act of 1919, Madras Bombay United Province Village Panchayat Act of 1920, then Bihar and Orissa Village Administration Act of 1926, then Punjab Village Panchayat Act of 1935. So these acts aimed at looking after the development of villages and their affairs, and the local self-government had the power to they had the power to even to try minor cases, but these, however, bodies were not democratic in nature in a real sense, because most of the members were not elected but nominated by the government, and they had very few powers were given to them, and their financial resources were also limited. So the situation remained more or less tame till 1947. However, the Indian National Congress perceived panchayat as people's institutions, and local self-governance was seen as the true voice of democracy. So many of the leaders, mainly Mahatma Gandhi, had pointed out that that independence must begin at the lowest level, and every village should be given that autonomy. It should be made a republic with a panchayat having full powers and authority, and they should have the functions to perform, to initiate activities, to initiate developmental activities. So the idea was to have a democratic process operating at the grassroots level as much as at the national level. And in this regard, there was a study team on community projects and national extension services, which was headed by Balwant Rai Mehta. and it was set up in 1957, which expressed concern about the lack of popular participation in community development programs, and made a strong plea for the devolution of powers to lower levels through the Panchayati Raj. So, thus the Panchayati Raj system came into existence in 1959 with two basic objectives. These were democratic decentralization, and secondly local participation in planned program. This was a big step which were forwarded in the process of the development. However, there had been a number of committees were appointed by the government of India to study the implementation of self-government at the rural level, which recommended steps in achieving the broader goal and objective, that is to establish to bring Panchayati Raj institutions into force. The first was the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. The Balwant Rai Mehta Committee was appointed in 1957, which to examine and suggest measures for better work functioning of the community development program and the National Extension Service. And the committee suggested the establishment of a democratic decentralized local government, which came to be known as the Panchayati Raj. They had made certain recommendations. First of all, that there should be a three-tier system, namely Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad. Then there should be directly elected representatives to constitute the Gram Panchayat, and indirectly elected representatives to constitute the Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad. Then planning and development are the primary objectives of the Panchayati Raj system. Panchayat Samiti should be the executive body, and Zilla Parishad should act as the advisory and supervisory body. Then district collector to be made the chairman of the Zilla Parishad, and it also requested for the provision of resources so that it help them to discharge the duties and responsibilities. However, the Balwant Rai committee further revitalized the development of panchayats in the country, and the reports recommended that the panchayat institutions can play a very substantial role in community development program throughout the country. So the objective of the panchayat was the democratic decentralization through effective participation of local people with the help of well planned and systematic programs. Even the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, had defended the panchayat system by saying that authority and power must be given to the people in the villages. So power has to be given to the panchayat. Then there was this Ashok Mehta committee in 1977, and this committee was appointed under the chairmanship of Ashok Mehta to review the working of the Panchayat Raj institutions. The committee listed several factors responsible for the decline of Panchayati Raj, and which included disassociation of the program of development from the Panchayati Raj, inability of the bureaucracy to involve panchayats in the implementation of the development program, internal deficiencies within the panchayat institutions, and a lack of clarity regarding the concept of Panchayati Raj. So the Ashok Mehta committee also provided a definite philosophical treatment to the system. It observed that the rural India was the backbone of all development program, and the future of India would depend on it as well, and particularly on the welfare of the village community. So Panchayati Raj as a system should contribute to the philosophy and the functions of the rural life in India. In fact, the most significant recommendations of this community at the district, of this committee was about the two-tier Panchayati Raj system that was at the district level, which has to be established. According to the recommendations, the Zilla Parishad at the district level need to be established as the first point of decentralization, and it also recommended the formation of Mandal Panchayats. So, Balwant Rai Mehta had suggested three-tier system, and Ashok Mehta had suggested two-tier, that is Zilla Parishad and the Mandal Panchayats. So, a Mandal was conceived as a group of villages which would make necessary linked with the system in developing the development focal points. So it would also develop, it would also develop links with the rural and the urban areas. One major weakness of the Ashok Mehta committee was that it ignored the importance of the Gram Sabha. Then came the G.V.K. Rao committee. This committee was set up in 1985, and it was asked to look into the administrative arrangements for rural development and the role of panchayat bodies as well as the relationship with the administrative setup. With the reference to the village, with reference to the Panchayati Raj, recall they made certain recommendations. First of all, that Zilla Parishad should be strengthened, which was at the district. There should be subcommittees at the district with proportional representation. Planning functions, some planning functions need to be transferred to the district level, and elections of local bodies should be held regularly. So the committee believed that the development was possible only if large number of people participated in the developmental activities, and in order to achieve this, adequate powers and financial resources at the local level were to be considered essential. Then came the L.M. Singhavi committee. This was set up in 1986, and it gave importance to the Gram Sabha. So once again, Gram Sabha was reviewed at the seedbed of democracy, and they had made certain recommendations where it emphasized on the local self-government by saying it should be constitutionally recognized. Then elections at the panchayat level should be held regularly and without any further delay. Then Panchayati Raj judicial tribunal should be set up in every state to deal with matters related to the working of Panchayati Raj. Then there should be adequate financial resources to ensure effective functioning of the panchayats. Then participation of individuals attached to political parties should be discouraged, and Nyay Panchayat should be given the functions of mediation and settling up of any village issues. Then the Sarkaria Commission came into existence, and the Sarkaria Commission was established in 1988, which was primarily concerned with the center-state relationship. It also recommended the strengthening of the local bodies financially as well as functionally, and the Commission also believed that the elections of Panchayat must be held regularly. So by the end of 1988, a subcommittee of the Consultative Committee of Parliament under the chairmanship of P.K. Tangan made recommendations for strengthening the Panchayati Raj system once again, and one of its important recommendation was that Panchayati Raj bodies should be constitutionally recognized. So similarly, the Congress committee headed by V.N. Gadgil in 1989 recommended a three-tier system again of Panchayati Raj with a fixed term of 5 years for the elected members and reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe as well as women. So the recommendation of these various committees and the commissions generated generated a strong realization that there was a need to create a strong third layer of governance which would help the rural community to influence its own future and its own discourse in terms of developmental activities. So to materialize this, it was considered necessary to give constitutional recognition to the third layer of this governance, and it was against this backdrop it was against the backdrop of these recommendations made by various committees and commissions that the Constitution 64th Amendment Bill was drafted. However, then the amendment phase began with the 64th Amendment Bill 1989. Which was introduced in the Parliament for constituting panchayats in every state at the village, intermediate as well as at the district level. It proposed that the legislature of a state could by law endow the panchayats with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as institutions of self-government. So this bill was the brainchild of Rajiv Gandhi, who strongly believed in strengthening panchayats by giving them the constitutional status. So unfortunately, though the bill got 2/3 of majority in the Lok Sabha, it was struck down in the Rajya Sabha on October 15, 1989 by just 2 votes. So the next government headed by V.P. Singh also made an abortive effort to provide constitutional status to panchayats through the amendment or through the introduction of the 74th Amendment Bill. However, notwithstanding the above disappointments, the government declared its commitment to the philosophy of power to the people, and so providing the much needed constitutional status to the panchayat. So accordingly, in September 1991, the 72nd Amendment of the Constitution was introduced, and this was referred to as a Joint Select Committee of the Parliament in December 1991 for detailed for a detailed examination. Then finally, after including necessary changes, the amendment was passed with near unanimity in the Lok Sabha on December 22nd, 1992, and in the Rajya Sabha on December 23rd, 1992. So finally, on April 20th, 1993, the President of India gave it assent, and this amendment of the Constitution came into known as the Constitution 73rd Amendment Act. So this act was brought into force by notification with the effect from April 24, 1993, and this act makes the detail of transfer, or this act had delivered or it suggested the transfer of powers to the Panchayat, a part of the most basic document of the nation, that is the Constitution of India. And by virtue of this act, no one will be able to take away the powers, responsibilities and finances given to the panchayats. They were expected to play a much bigger role in the development of their respective areas, as well as to look after the needs and necessities of the people. And it was also expected that everyone will be able to take part in this process, including the poorest of the poor. So with this act, a new part 9 was added to the Constitution, which contained certain provisions from Article 243 to 243O to resolve the issues and weaknesses existing in the system of the panchayats at the village local level. The significance of the act. If we talk about the significance of the act added Part 9 to the Constitution, and the panchayats and also added the 11th schedule, which consisted of 29 functional items of the panchayats. Part 9 of the Constitution contained Articles 243 to Article 243O. Then the amendment provides its shape to Article 40 of the Constitution, Directive Principles of the State Policy, which directs the state to organize the village panchayats and provide them powers and authority so that they can function as a self-governing body. With the Act, Panchayati Raj also came under the purview of the justiciable part of the Constitution and mandate states to adopt the system. The election process in the Panchayati Raj institutions will be held independent of the state government's will. And the Act has two parts: compulsory and voluntary. Compulsory provisions must be added to state laws, which included the creation of new Panchayati Raj systems. Voluntary provisions, on the other hand, is the direction of discretion of the state government. Then the Act is significant, had been always considered a significant step in creating democratic institutions at the grassroots level in the country, and it had transformed the representative democracy into participatory democracy. However, there had been a certain broader objectives of the Panchayati Raj institutions, and this because the broader aim was to enhance the local governance and empower rural communities in India. So the objectives included to decentralize power, that is transfer decision-making authority to the grassroots level to promote self-governance. Secondly, to encourage inclusive participation, which talked about, or which rather focused on fostering engagements of local populations in governance, ensuring their involvement in decision-making process. Then to empower the marginalized groups, which also talks about political representation of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women by reserving seats for them in the local governance. Then to improve service delivery, enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of public service delivery and development programs by making governance more accessible. Then to promote economic development, facilitated local economic growth through community-driven planning and implementation of developmental initiatives. To promote, or to address social justice, tailor welfare schemes were to be created, and development projects were being initiated to meet the specific needs of the local communities, promoting equity and equality, to enhance enhanced transparency and accountability, which focused on increased transparency and accountability in governing by involving local communities in oversight of public works and services. Then to nurture local leadership, developing the leaders or develop local leaders by empowering them with administrative and managerial roles in the governance. And then to mobilize community resources, encourage the collective use of community resources for development, fostering self-reliance. And then lastly, to strengthen grassroots democracy, that is transform representative democracy into a more participatory form, aligning governance with the aspirations of the local people. These were the, furthermore, apart from the objectives, these are the salient features of the Act. First of all, the Gram Sabha, which is the primary body of the Panchayati Raj system, and it is a village assembly consisting of all the registered voters within the area of the Panchayat. It will exercise powers and perform such functions as determined by the state legislature. Then there is a three-tier system, that is the Act provides for the establishment of the three-tier system, three-tier system of Panchayati Raj in the villages, that is the village level, intermediate level and at the district level. A state with a population of less than 20 lakh may not constitute the intermediate level. The next was the election of members and chairperson. The members to all levels of the Panchayati Raj are elected directly, and the chairperson to the intermediate at the district level are elected indirectly from the elected members, and at the village level the chairperson is elected and determined by the state government. Then there had been reservations of seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Reservation has to be provided in all the three tiers in accordance with the population percentage. Women also, not less than 1/3 of the total number of seats to be reserved for women. Further, not less than 1/3 of the total number of offices for chairperson at all levels of the panchayat to be reserved for the women. The state legislatures are also given the provision to decide on the reservation of seats in any level of panchayat or office of chairperson in favor of backward classes. Then the duration of panchayat, the Act provides a 5-year term of office to all the levels of the panchayat. However, the panchayat can be dissolved before the completion of its terms, but fresh elections to constitute the new panchayat shall be completed before the expiry of its 5-year duration, and in case of dissolution, before the expiry of a period of 6 months from the date of its dissolution. Then disqualification, a person shall be disqualified for being chosen as or for being a member of panchayat if he or she is so disqualified under any law for the time being in force for the purpose of elections to the legislature of the state of concern, under any law made by the state legislature. However, no person shall be disqualified on the ground that he is less than 25 years of age, if he has attained the age of 21 years. And then further, all questions related to disqualification shall be referred to any authority determined by the state legislatures. Then State Election Commission. The Commission is responsible for superintendence, direction and control of the preparation of electoral rolls and conducting elections for the panchayat. The state legislature may make provisions with respect to all matters relating to elections to the panchayats. Then there is powers and functions. The state legislature may endow the panchayats with such powers and authority as it may be necessary to enable them to function as institutions of self-government. Such a scheme may contain provisions related to Gram Panchayat work with respect to the preparation of plans for economic development and social justice, and the implementations of schemes and welfare measures for economic development and social justice as it may be entrusted to them, including those in relation to 29 matters listed in the 11th schedule. Then finances. The state legislature may authorize a panchayat to levy, collect and appropriate tax, duties, tolls and fees, assign to panchayat taxes, duties, tolls and fees levied and collected by the state government. Then provide for making grant and aids to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of the state, and provide for the constitution of funds for crediting all money of the panchayats. Then Finance Commission, the State Finance Commission reviews the financial positions of the panchayats and provide recommendations for the necessary steps to be taken to supplement resources to the panchayat. Then audit of accounts, a state legislature may make provisions for the maintenance and audit of panchayat accounts. Then application to union territories, the president may direct the provision of the acts to be applied on any union territory subject to exceptions and modifications he specifies. Then exempted areas and states, the act does not apply to the states of Meghalaya, Nagaland and Mizoram and certain other areas, and these areas would include the scheduled areas and the scheduled tribe areas in the states. Although the PISA Act after 1992 came into existence, that is the extension of panchayats to the scheduled areas. Then the hilly area of Manipur with a district for which a district council exists. Then the Darjeeling district of West Bengal for which Darjeeling Gorkha Hill Council exists. However, the parliament can extend this part to these areas subject to the exceptions and modifications it specifies. The PISA Act was enacted. Then the continuance of existing law, all the state laws relating to panchayat shall continue to be enforced until the expiry of 1 year from the commencement of this act. In other words, the states have to adopt the new Panchayati Raj system based on this act. The maximum period of 1 year from 24th April 1993, which was the date of the commencement of this act. All the panchayat, all the panchayat existing immediately before the commencement of the act shall continue till the expiry of the term unless dissolved by the state legislature sooner. Then bar to interference by courts. The act bars the court from interfering in the electoral matters of the panchayats. It declares the validity of any law relating to the delimitation of constituencies or the allotment of seats to such constituencies cannot be questioned in any court. It further lays down that no election to the panchayat is to be questioned except by an election petition presented to such authority and in such manner as provided by the state legislature. So these were the very salient features of the Panchayati Raj institution. Now, if you talk about the structure of the panchayat, of course, there is a three-tier system, that is the Gram Panchayat, village level, the lowest tier which is consisting of elected representatives from a village of a group of people, and a Gram Sabha is an important feature of the structure of the panchayats at the village level, because it is the supreme village assembly and soul of the Panchayati Raj institutions having a legal status under the law. It consists of all the adult persons registered as voters in the electoral roll of village comprised within the area of Gram Panchayat, and it has been made obligatory for the Gram Sabha to hold 2 or 4 general meetings in each year. So a Gram Sabha may exercise such powers. A Gram Sabha may exercise such powers and perform such functions as the legislature of the state may by law provides. And in most of the states, the Gram Sabha are constituted as an instrument of popular participation. They are vested with the powers to consider the accounts and administration of the panchayats and approve proposals for taxations and plans for development and identify beneficiaries under various schemes. So Gram Panchayat throughout the country, throughout the country, village panchayat is the basic unit of the structure of the Panchayati Raj. So as village panchayats have been in existence in the country since time, almost all states recognize their importance and significance, and it is also felt that as panchayats are nearer to the community, they would ensure more direct participation of the people in the implementation and the developmental programs. So all the seats in a Gram Panchayat are filled by persons chosen directly, chosen by direct elections, from the territorial constituencies in the Panchayat area. So they have been seats reserved for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, as well as for the women. Then there is Panchayat Samiti, which is the intermediate level, and it operates at the block level, coordinating between the Gram Panchayats and the Zilla Parishad. Panchayat Samiti is again the next important body in the hierarchy, and it is in the hierarchical structure of the Panchayati Raj. And Samitis have certain important role to play. The voters in the area directly, the voters in the area directly elect their representatives in a Samiti, and the state may provide representation of the chairperson of the village panchayats, MPs, MLAs, and MLCs. So the structure of the panchayat samitis varies from state to state. So these seats, however, reserved for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and women. And then we have the Zilla Parishad, which is at the district level, and the top tier overseeing multiple blocks and coordinating district level department. So the Zilla Parishad, if you talk about the Zilla Parishad, that is the third tier in the Panchayati Raj institutions, and the structural pattern with Zilla Parishad is the same as in the Panchayat Samiti. The voters directly elect the representatives from the constituencies, and these seats have also been reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes as well as the women. And the state legislature may provide by law representation of the chairperson of the Panchayat Samitis, MPs, MLAs, and MLCs. If you look into the functions and powers of Panchayati Raj, all Panchayati Raj institutions perform such functions as are specified in the state laws relating to Panchayati Raj. Some states distinguish between obligatory and optional functions of Gram Panchayats, while other states do not make any distinction. So the civic functions relating to sanitation, cleaning of public roads, minor irrigation, public toilets and lavatories, primary health care, vaccination, the supply of drinking water, constructing public wells, rural electrification, social health, and primary and adult education are obligatory functions of the village panchayats. The optional functions depends upon the resources of the panchayat. They may or may not perform such functions as tree plantation on roadsides, setting up of breeding centers for cattle, organizing child and maternity welfare promotion of agriculture, etc. Then, however, after the 73rd Amendment Act, the scope of functions of Gram Panchayat was widened. Such important functions like preparation of annual development plan of Panchayat area, annual budget, relief in natural calamities, removal of encroachment on public lands, and implementation and monitoring of poverty alleviation programs were now expected to be performed by the Panchayats. So, selection of beneficiaries through Gram Sabha, public distribution system, non-conventional energy source, improved chulas, biogas plants, they have also been given to Gram Panchayats in some states. There are certain functions of Panchayat Samitis. Panchayat Samiti is considered to be the hub of developmental activities, and they are headed by the block development officers. They are entrusted with the functions like agricultural, land improvement, watershed development, social and farm forestry, technical and vocational education. The second type of functions relates to the implementation of some specific plans, schemes or programs to which funds are earmarked. It means that the Panchayat Samiti has to spend money only on that specific project, and the choice of location or beneficiaries is however available to the Panchayat Samiti. Then functions of the Zilla Parishad. Zilla Parishad links Panchayat Samiti with the district within the Zilla Parishad links Panchayat Samiti within the district, and it coordinates their activities and supervises their functioning. It prepares district plans and integrates Samiti plans into the district plans for submission to the state government. It prepares, Zilla Parishad also looks after development works in the entire district. It undertakes schemes to improve agricultural production, exploit groundwater resources, extend rural electrification and distribution, and initiate employment generation activities, construct roads and other public works. It also performs welfare functions like relief during natural calamities and scarcity, establishment of orphanages and poor homes, night shelters, the welfare of women and child. In addition, Zilla Parishad also perform functions entrusted to them under the central and state government sponsored programs like Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, a centrally sponsored scheme for which money is directly given to the district to undertake employment generating activities. That was all about the Panchayat Raj institutions, and in my next lecture I will continue with the PISA Act. Thank you.